We stand at the moment on the edge of art history, a critical moment in cultural diplomacy, the potential return of the Elgin marbles, the Acropolis marbles, the Greek marbles to Greece, and this issue, simmering for over 2 centuries, but certainly over about 60 years, has resurfaced with renewed fervour, as the Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis engages in private discussions with British Museum trustees spearheaded by George Osborne. The marbles, intricately carved sections on the Parthenon's frieze, were removed by Lord Elgin in the early 19th century under what he claimed was an Ottoman permission from with a so-called firman. However, it remains as elusive as Atlantis itself, referred to only through an Italian document, so we don't have the original firman, the original Turkish document, and that has apparently been destroyed. And Greece has consistently maintained that the removal was an act of cultural vandalism, whether there was a firman or whether there was not, whether you actually have a copy of that firman or not. Much the same, they say, as sawing the Mona Lisa in half. This view is shared by Turkey, which has supported Greece's case, leveraging its Ottoman archives to argue that no such permission ever existed. The British Museum Act of 1963 remains the immovable object in this debate, prohibiting the permanent removal of artefacts, even if the museum or the government wants to. So, to take the marbles out of the UK to give them to Greece would require effectively a modification or a repeal of the British Museum Act of 1963. Yet there is a glimmer of legal light that shines through with an unintended consequence of the Charities Act 2022. And this legislative loophole allows for the disposal of artefacts where a moral obligation exists. Labour, now in power, could capitalise on this clause, paving the way for the marbles' return without directly challenging the 1963 Act. And the mood, therefore, has shifted dramatically under Keir Starmer. Unlike his predecessor, Rishi Sunak, who abruptly cancelled any meeting with Mitsotakis in a diplomatic rudeness which is simply staggering, Starmer appears open to negotiation, reportedly entertaining the idea of a loan agreement. Such an arrangement would exchange parts of the frieze for Greek antiquities, sidestepping the thorny issue of ownership. But once these artefacts are in Greece, they will never come back. This pragmatic approach mirrors George Osborne's call for a deal to be done, offering a path forward without amending British law. I think it's a positive thing. The marbles belong where they were first exhibited, and the museum, which is not quite on the Acropolis itself, but overlooks the Acropolis. I remember it being built, and I remember people being thrown out of their homes for that building with great promises of compensation which was never paid up. So people have suffered for that museum to be erected. And for Greece, this is not, therefore, just a matter of marbles, but about cultural identity. The Greeks have paid highly for this story, and the marbles are fragments of their heritage, fragments of the Parthenon, a symbol of democracy itself, displayed in Athens as part of a cohesive narrative of Hellenic heritage. And their return would heal what Greece considers to be an open wound inflicted during a period of subjugation. Yet obstacles remain formidable. Any deal short of permanent restitution risks a backlash in Athens, where public sentiment is resolutely opposed to acknowledging British ownership at all. Meanwhile, in the UK, critics argue that such a move sets a precedent, triggering a deluge of restitution claims from nations housing their own scars of colonialism. But there is reason for optimism. The British Museum's Duveen Gallery, home to the marbles, is set to close for renovations next year, presenting an opportune moment for the temporary return to Athens. And this could serve as a trial run, allowing both nations to assess the cultural and diplomatic impact of such a gesture. I think also, at the same time, we should look at the possibility of manufacturing accurate copies of the marbles, which could perhaps be kept in the UK, and coloured so that we could see what they would actually look like in 4th century Athens when they were first sculpted and put up on the Acropolis. The debate transcends the marbles themselves, speaking to the broader post-Brexit redefinition of UK-Greece relations. And with Greece ascending to a non-permanent seat on the UN Security Council in January, and the UK eyeing closer ties with the EU, cultural diplomacy offers a chance to solidify bilateral goodwill. The Elgin marbles represent a microcosm of the larger unresolved tensions of history, empire, and identity. And as Britain and Greece edge closer to an agreement, the question becomes whether this will be a moment of reconciliation or yet another chapter in the saga of cultural appropriation, cultural contention, cultural aggression or colonialization. The world watches with bated breath, hopeful that these ancient stones may finally find their way home.